Once upon a time, in the heart of Scotland, stood an old, grand castle that had been abandoned for centuries. Its walls were covered in ivy and moss, and its grand halls echoed with the ghosts of its former inhabitants. The castle was shrouded in mystery and legend, and it was said that anyone who dared to enter its walls would be met with a fate worse than death. Despite the rumors, two American tourists, John and Sarah, had always dreamed of visiting Scotland, and they were especially excited to explore the castles dotted throughout the countryside. Their dream became a reality one sunny May day when they finally arrived in Scotland. They set out to explore the castle's ancient corners, despite their guide's warnings to stay with the group. As they wandered deeper into the castle, the air grew colder, and the atmosphere more eerie. The couple couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows flickered in the corners of their vision, and the whispers of ghostly voices filled the air. Suddenly, the couple heard a strange noise coming from one of the castle's hidden rooms. They hesitated for a moment, but their curiosity got the best of them, and they entered the room. As soon as they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them. The room was pitch black, and the couple could feel the weight of something sinister bearing down on them. They fumbled around in the darkness, but it was too late. Shadowy figures began to appear out of nowhere, closing in on them from all sides. The tourists ran as fast as they could, their footsteps echoing in the dark, winding corridors of the castle. But the ghostly figures were relentless, their whispers growing louder and more menacing with each passing moment. As the couple stumbled through the darkness, they came upon the castle's chapel. They collapsed onto the pews, gasping for breath, hoping to catch a moment of respite from the terror that pursued them. But their rest was short-lived, as the shadowy figures closed in around them once more. Panic took hold of the couple, and they sprinted back through the dark corridors, their hearts pounding in their chests. The ghosts were hot on their heels, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly fire. Finally, the tourists burst out onto the castle's windswept battlements, their legs weak and trembling. They turned to look back at the castle, and there they saw the ghostly figures still lurking in the shadows. It was then that the couple realized they had stumbled upon the castle's darkest secret, a secret that the ghosts of the castle's former inhabitants would protect at all costs. Days went by, and the couple couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had taken hold of them. They tried to tell themselves that it was all in their imagination, but they knew deep down that something sinister was afoot. One day, as they were exploring a nearby village, they overheard a group of locals whispering about the haunted castle. They spoke of a curse that had been placed on the castle by an ancient witch, and of the dark magic that still lingered within its walls. Determined to learn more, John and Sarah decided to do some research. They visited the local library and searched through old books and manuscripts, trying to piece together the castle's history. They discovered that the castle had once been home to a powerful nobleman, who had dabbled in the dark arts. Legend had it that the nobleman had made a deal with a powerful demon, trading his soul for untold power and riches. The demon had granted his wish, but in return, the nobleman had to perform a dark ritual that would seal the castle's fate forever. As Jessica walked through the decrepit hallways of the abandoned Scottish castle, she felt a growing sense of dread. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. The musty scent of decay filled her nostrils, and the shadows seemed to shift and writhe as if alive. Her photographer set up his equipment, eager to capture the eerie atmosphere of the old ruin. But as he began to snap pictures, the air grew thick with a sinister energy. The castle was not as empty as it had seemed. Jessica tried to ignore the uneasy feeling that crept up her spine. But as they continued their shoot, strange things began to happen. Cold drafts blew through the open windows, even though there was no wind outside. Footsteps echoed through the empty halls, but when she turned to look, there was no one there. At first, Jessica tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. But as the night wore on, the hauntings grew more intense. She heard voices whispering in her ear, and spectral hands reached out to touch her skin. The photographer's equipment malfunctioned, and his shots came out distorted and blurry, as if something was interfering with the images. The malevolent energy in the castle seemed to be growing stronger with every passing moment. And as the flash of the camera illuminated the darkness, Jessica caught glimpses of ghostly apparitions lurking in the shadows. They were not friendly spirits, but vengeful ones, driven by a deep hatred for the living. As the night wore on, Jessica and her photographer realized with growing horror that they were not alone in the castle. Something was watching them from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. With each passing moment, the malevolent energy grew stronger, suffocating them with its dark presence. And as they tried to flee the castle, they found their path blocked by an unseen force, trapping them in the clutches of the angry spirits. Jessica and her photographer fought for their lives, struggling to escape the castle's grip. But in the end, they barely made it out alive. The experience left them both changed forever, haunted by the memories of the malevolent force that they had encountered in that eerie old ruin. And as they looked out at the world, they couldn't help but wonder what other horrors might be lurking just beyond the edge of their vision, waiting to claim their souls. For in that castle, they had encountered a darkness beyond comprehension, a force of evil that had been waiting for centuries to be unleashed upon the world once more. So do you really want to become Instagram famous? I would think long and hard.
I hope you enjoy the content I upload. If you like what I'm doing, why not think about clicking on the subscribe button to keep up to date on my uploads. Thank you all for the great support.
The family of four had been driving for hours on end, trying to make their way across the vast Scottish countryside. The sun had set hours ago and they had been traveling in darkness for what felt like an eternity. Suddenly, their car sputtered to a stop, its engine letting out a final, pitiful cough before dying completely. The father, John, tried to start the car again, but to no avail. With no cell service and no other cars in sight, they were stranded in the middle of nowhere. John's wife, Mary, and their two children, Timmy and Lily, huddled together in the backseat, shivering in the cold. "What are we going to do?" Mary asked, her voice trembling with fear. John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We'll have to find help on foot. It can't be that far to the nearest town, right?" The family stepped out of the car and into the dark, eerie night. They wrapped themselves in their jackets and began walking along the deserted road, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they walked, they noticed the trees around them growing thicker and taller, until they were surrounded by a dense forest. They walked deeper and deeper into the woods, their path lit only by the faint glow of the moon above. The wind howled through the trees, sending chills down their spines. Suddenly, they saw a light in the distance, shining like a beacon in the darkness. "Look," Timmy cried, pointing towards the light. "Maybe someone can help us." The family quickened their pace, their hope growing with each step. As they got closer, they realized that the light was coming from a massive castle looming in the distance. At first, they were relieved to have found shelter, but as they got closer, they noticed something was off. The castle seemed abandoned and the only lights that were on were in one small section of the massive building. Still, desperate for help, they cautiously made their way inside. The doors to the castle creaked open, revealing a long, dark hallway. The air inside was musty and stale, the only sound the echoing footsteps of the family. As they walked deeper into the castle, they saw strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols they couldn't recognize. The air grew colder and the hallways grew darker, until they finally reached a room where the light was coming from. The family hesitated before entering, their fear growing with each passing moment. As they entered the room, they were met with a chilling sight. A family of eerie-looking individuals stood before them, each armed with a different weapon. At first, they tried to explain their situation and asked for help, but they were met with cold, calculating stares from the strange family. They soon realized that this family wasn't like any other. They had a twisted pleasure in hunting and killing innocent strangers that stumbled upon their castle. The family quickly turned on the family, chasing them through the halls of the dark and creepy castle. John grabbed a candlestick from the wall and swung it at one of the attackers, knocking him to the ground. Mary grabbed a knife from the table and slashed at another, drawing blood. Timmy and Lily ran ahead, trying to find a way out. As the hunted family fought for their lives and tried to escape, they began to notice strange things about the castle. The walls seemed to move and the doors to different rooms would vanish right before their very eyes. The family ran through the maze of hallways, trying to find their way out. They heard the strange family chasing them, their footsteps growing louder with each passing moment. Suddenly, the floor beneath them gave way, sending them tumbling down a long, dark tunnel. When the family finally reached the end of the tunnel, they found themselves in a room that seemed to be a laboratory. There were strange machines and vials filled with unknown substances. In the center of the room, they saw a large circular table with a single, flickering candle. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. They huddled together, fear coursing through their veins. The door to the room slowly opened, revealing the twisted family standing before them. The leader of the group, a tall, gaunt man with sunken eyes and a sinister smile, stepped forward. Well, he said, his voice cold and menacing. "It seems you've stumbled upon our little operation. How unfortunate for you." John stepped forward, brandishing the candlestick. "We're not going to let you hurt us," he said, his voice firm. The twisted family laughed, their laughter echoing through the room. "Oh, we're not going to hurt you," the leader said. Not yet, at least. You see, we have a proposition for you. He motioned towards the circular table, where a map was spread out. We've been searching for something for a very long time, he said. And we believe you can help us find it. John looked at the map, trying to make sense of it. What is it you're looking for? He asked. The Twisted Family leader leaned in, his eyes gleaming with excitement. A relic, he said. One that has been hidden away for centuries. A relic with the power to grant immortality. The family looked at each other, their hearts pounding. And if we help you find it? Mary asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Twisted Family leader grinned. Then we'll let you go. Alive, even. But if you don't help us, he trailed off, letting the threat hang in the air. The family had no choice but to agree. They spent the next few hours deciphering the map and following the Twisted Family's instructions. They walked through hidden passageways and climbed up narrow staircases, their nerves on edge. Finally, they reached a small chamber deep within the castle. In the center of the room, they saw a pedestal with a small, glowing orb resting on top of it. The Twisted Family members stood back, their eyes fixated on the orb. John cautiously approached the pedestal and reached out for the orb. As soon as his hand touched it, the room began to shake. The Twisted Family members howled with delight as the walls around them began to crumble. The family ran for their lives, dodging falling debris and leaping over cracks in the floor. They finally burst out of the castle and ran into the woods, not stopping until they were far away. They collapsed on the ground, their bodies shaking with fear and exhaustion. They knew that the Twisted Family would continue to hunt them, but they also knew that they had something that the family wanted. Something that could keep them alive. As they made their way back to civilization, they could feel the orb's power coursing through their veins. They knew that they could never let it fall into the Twisted Family's hands. They would do whatever it took to protect it. And so, the family of 4 became the hunted, their lives forever changed by their encounter with the Twisted Family. They knew that they could never forget the horrors they had faced, and that the castle would always be a place of nightmares for them.